Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming Invitational Qualifier at their home store in Caldwell, Ohio. I'm Tandy, joined by Bomat Courier. Say hi, Bomat.
Hi, Bomat.
And we got 4 rounds in the books. We are about to play the last round of Swiss, and we are going to be finding our top 8 after this round. We've seen so far just a nice variety of decks with Amber Steel seemingly coming out on top. Not a whole lot of Ruby Amethyst, which is surprising. Ruby Amethyst Control has been the big bad of the format for the first month and change. What do you think about this resurgence of Amber Steel?
Yeah, well, I have to imagine that a lot of that is based on Nicholas Rausch's win a couple weeks ago at the previous Invitational qualifier with Amber Steel. Maybe the deck is picking up in popularity. We've certainly seen a lot of it at these tables, but we've also seen some, variation in these builds. Just last round, we saw a build with a lot more of a bodyguard focus.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to build it. I personally love my Stitch Blitz build that goes Stitch Rockstar, Whole New World, Aerial, Spectacular Singer, but there's so many different ways that you can build it, and people are just bringing their own flavors, and we're still very early into, solving first chapter constructed, and we're about to get second chapter too, so it's going to change things up significantly. So looks like the players are finished with mulligans and stuff, so let's head on down to the match and watch round number 5 to see which of these players takes it down. Do we have records? Yeah, records for these players. They're both 301, so this actually is not an elimination match. This is actually for seeding. So whoever wins this match will either be first or second seed. We had 4 players at 3-0-1 going into the last round of Swiss, and all of them are playing for seeding in the last round. Unger here on Emerald Amethyst leads with Olaf. Back Josh Courtney's way.
Yep, Olaf, one of the better one drops against Amber Steel. It's not going to die to either of their sweeps, and Josh answers back with his own one drop.
I don't know what this device is that's sitting in play, but I see all of the color symbols from Lorcana on it, so it's a nice little design. Looks like he's using it to hold all of his minus counters and things like that.
Yeah, nice little custom laser cut box, maybe.
It's crazy what we can do these days with technology, right?
Yeah, laser printers are super cool to me. Laser cutters, rather.
I like laser printers too, or not laser printers, 3D printers. I don't know much about them, but they kind of blow my mind.
Yeah, for sure. I spend a lot of time on YouTube watching 3D printing and laser cutting and casting. All right, Jesse, figuring out which 2-drop he wants to play, decides on Meg.
All right, no buff from the Meg. We're gonna quest with that Olaf. We're gonna go back Courtney's way to see if he can have anything to challenge either of these characters. Lilo is a nice little 1-drop, but not when you're being defensive. And here it looks like Unger is taking the initiative, but we have the Lantern into a second copy of Lilo making a wish. Looks pretty weak in the face of this Olaf.
Right. Usually with multiple Lilo hands, you're really only worried against steel decks in particular, but Olaf definitely very threatening to this Lilo's. Is not going to cost much at all to take care of them. But Jesse now, it's interesting to me that he decided to quest with the Meg, because if Josh feels like these Lilos aren't going to get much done, it could be very attractive for him to trade a Lilo for the Meg.
All right. 3. Gonna be Cheshire Cat, and we're getting aggressive. And now Courtney able to trade with the Lilo into the Meg. I actually think this is a relatively reasonable trade. Questing for 2 versus 1, obviously a down trade, but when you're this far behind on the board, any trade you can make is usually pretty decent.
Right, absolutely. The alternative being, if Josh has a grab your sword or a giant Tinkerbell lined up, he might be content to just sit on these Lilos until Jesse's board is cleared, and then just start getting down some lore and turning the corner.
All right, back Jesse Unger's way. We're gonna draw before readying everything again. Kind of sorry, giving some penalties. I gotta come up with
No,
like a penalties guideline. I think we gotta
yeah.
have some
Totally.
escalation.
Talk to the players before the top 8.
All right, Unger here has a hand with a couple of friends on the other side, Jasper and a Peter Pan with evasive. Peter Pan going to the inkwell as it always does.
Now, notably, Jesse's looking at Josh's board and sees 2 ink and 2 lanterns. So Josh skipped playing an ink last turn. Is still keeping up on ink thanks to the lanterns, but those are only for characters. So Josh isn't threatening a grab your sword for a while now, unless he
Right.
gets a bigger character into play, and is still not threatening a giant tinker this turn.
All right, even has a third lantern in hand. So a very
Right.
gummed up hand from Josh Courtney, unable to play any of those defensive measures. His hand is relatively weak considering. But here comes Prince Eric, and we're going to go challenging. Do we take out Cheshire Cat or do we eat? We eat Meg. Okay.
This is an interesting trade because if Jesse wants to trade off the Olaf for the Prince Eric on a following turn, well, the Simba, of course, will make that difficult.
Yeah, Simba Bodyguard here might actually lead Josh into questing with the Lilos this turn. So maybe we're starting to turn a corner. Here's 4 lore. We're going to go up to 4. Ah, it's a lore counter. That's what it is. Okay. I see the little spin ups there. It's hard to see from here. I'm sure it looks way better down on the table.
Yeah, we're gonna stick to our scoreboard. Uh, Josh, trying to get aggressive, like you said, the Simba might have been the missing piece, but still, with that third lantern and no third ink, is not really threatening to interact except through challenges.
Yeah,
Which
but Hook and Eric both do a great job of doing exactly that.
exactly. And Jesse, started off with a 1-drop and a 2-drop, but neither of them quested for 2 lore. So Jesse hasn't built up a whole lot of lore with these first few turns in which he was ahead on board.
Yeah, Cheshire is threatening to trade with one of the characters from Courtney's side, though, if he wants to quest with it. Could also use it to maybe sing another friends on the other side if he doesn't think the questing is that valuable.
Yeah, Courtney kind of getting paid off here for not trading with the Cheshire Cat and the Prince Eric on a previous turn, because now with 2 damage on it, you're completely happy to trade an entire Prince Eric for that Cheshire Cat.
So Unger might not be aware of the Tinkerbell trick. He has Tinkerbell in hand that can give something evasive, and he could give evasive to the Simba, and then his Olaf could eat one of the Lilos, but doesn't go for it.
Right.
Just going to play Maleficent Sorceress and draw a card and finds Hans. And Cheshire looks like also going to be singing friends on the other side. Looking for another thing to deploy here to defend.
Yeah, I think I might like just questing here. You're not going to be doing anything with the friends this turn, and it's pretty likely the Maleficent is going to be able to sing friends next turn. So like that, Jesse is prioritizing lore a bit here.
All right, here we go. Josh Courtney going to untap with quite a bit of lore and defense, even missing a bunch of inkables, but has those 3 copies of Lantern now, which can play characters. If his deck is full character oriented with Stitch Rockstar and very little in the way of the actual spells, it might not be that difficult. But Hook going to trade for Cheshire. I don't love that. I feel like the Eric should have traded with it. And then Hook could have eaten the Olaf.
That's true. You could also maybe not be worried about the Olaf, and the Eric having damage on it could be important for a Rapunzel.
Ah, that's fair. Rapunzel in hand would make a lot more sense. But Rapunzel not in hand, maybe not. We'll see. All right, we're going to quest for 2, 4, 5, up to 9. So we're almost even.
And yeah, like we said a couple turns ago, this Simba was the missing piece. Those Lilos sat there for a few turns, on turns 2, 3, and 4. But now that there's a Simba, they are really racking up lore and threatening to turn the game right in Josh's favor.
All right.
There is Stitch Rockstar.
Yeah, but now we're empty-handed. So we're going to go back Unger's way. If we can find a chain of characters next turn.
We're empty-handed, but with 9 lore in play, and our opponent only has 3. So the race definitely in Josh's favor. And Jesse's deck doesn't have a whole lot in the way of catch-up mech.
All right, let's see what Unger can deploy here. We know we have a Hans. I don't know what we have in the way of being defensive, so we might just need to tag team on the Simba here to knock it down. We can go 2 characters. Jasper and Olaf go into Simba. Each take 2 damage, but then Maleficent Sorceress can challenge one of the Lilos.
Yeah, really, where Jesse would want to be would be a Rafiki, or maybe using that Tinkerbell trick, if he's aware of it, to be able to get these Lilos off the battlefield. But using 2 challenges just to take care of a Simba is, it's kind of what you have to do, maybe, but isn't really progressing your game all that well.
All right, we're going to draw 2 cards. Found a Megara, so now we can use that plus Olaf to eat the Simba, and then Jasper can take care of one of the Lilos. Okay. Can do that plus a 3-drop, or can potentially play the Tinkerbell 4-drop to give the opposing Simba evasive, which means that you can challenge the ground creatures. Here's Meg.
Meg helps.
All right. Simba down. 2 damage on the Olaf. Olaf plus Meg is a nice little combo. Allows you to eat a lot of early characters without losing any battlefield presence.
I'm almost interested in maybe questing with this Jasper instead to keep the Stitch from questing. Because, like I said, there's not all that many catch-up mechanisms. Emerald, Amethyst, and Jesse really has to worry about his own lore as much as his opponents.
Jesse going to play Hatter as Ink and plays a Hans. Is going to quest for 3. A great turn from Jesse. See what Courtney can do. No cards in hand, but a Stitch Rockstar at the ready. 3 copies of Lantern, so we can spray and pray. What do we draw? 2.
Nice.
There it is. Prince Eric, we're going to draw a card. Next. There's a new dog. Draw a card.
It's the Stitch Blitz.
And then Lilo draw a card. And then Stitch draw a card. Is that good? Draw 4 cards.
5 ink for what? 2, 4, 5, 6 lore off the 1 card.
Oh yeah,
pretty good.
Now Eric can take out the Jasper. I like this trade. It already had a lot of damage on it. Now I think questing for 2 with the Lilo is reasonable, but part of me wants to eat the Olaf. I don't know why, but I want to eat it.
I also don't know why.
Because it looks tasty.
So let's see. Our opponent has 4 characters in play. We have 4 characters with 2 lore each, but nothing is really going to be able to take down this Stitch. I think Josh is in a great spot.
All right, Unger draws for turn.
And what Jesse is really looking for in this, we're already at the late game, is a way to both prevent a win from Josh while still keeping on the pressure, and just doesn't quite have the right characters or resources to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Emerald Amethyst is not the best at challenging, right? Like your 4 or 5 drops are things that quest for 3 and don't have like a ton of strength, right? They're not high challenge characters. They're high willpower and they're high lore. And we treat that as an aggressive stance because combat in this game is inherently defensive. And so when your opponent outraces you, it gets very difficult to come back.
Exactly, and we see here that's 4 lore worth of characters trading to keep that Stitch Rockstar off the battlefield. And now, even if we take care of these 2 Lilos, we can actually we're not in the worst spot after all these trades, I don't think.
Yeah, only 3 ink on the other side, or 3 lore on the other side, and I mean, look, all things considered, I think that this is about the best your combat's going to go, right? It was all set up from the beginning. Hasn't really played or done any tricks.
And this Tinkerbell, maybe, or instead a Maleficent to draw a card. Now, this is kind of a drum I bang on. The way Lorcana turns work, where your opponent doesn't really have any input, you can play that Maleficent first before making trades, if you can come to that conclusion before doing so.
Well, here is something I got to say to you, Matt. You and Mason are said the exact same things when we were doing commentary, the out of order sequencing or whatever, and you're right, right? But that's why you're in the booth. That's why I put you in the booth.
Wow!
Here's an enchanted Stitch or an enchanted Tinkerbell Giant Fairy that's gonna deal damage to all the opposing characters. I meant that in a good way. You're in the booth because you're an expert, not because you're not an expert.
I understand. I was reacting to this Tinkerbell. We saw Josh just last turn or a couple turns ago chaining 1-drop, 1-drop, 2-drop, 1-drop on the perfect turn with the Stitch, and then a turn later just gets to slam this 6-drop and absolutely dominate the board.
Yeah, and while those lanterns, they looked a little wonky early on, now they're just functioning like ink because the deck that Josh Courtney has built, this Amber Steel Stitch Blitz, is very dominated by characters and not by the actions. So, Courtney going to take game number 1, Jesse Unger sees enough, the writing's on the wall, picks him up, and we're going to go to game 2 in just a moment.
Right, you were talking about those lanterns. The reason you don't see lanterns in every deck is because you can get punished in the way Josh almost did there, where instead of drawing ink, you have to spend 2 ink on these lanterns. But it appears that Josh has built his deck in such a way that he's less punished by draws like that, where most of his deck is characters, most of it is cheap characters, and the lanterns actually let him get his cards into play as opposed to leaving action stuck in hand.
Yeah, I'm personally not the biggest fan of Lantern. Like, obviously, it offers some acceleration into your 4s, 5s, and 6s. And specifically in the Stitch Blitz decks, you can use it to play it on 2 and then use that to play another 1-drop, like a Stitch New Dog or Lilo or Captain Hook. But what ends up happening a lot of times is you are playing this 2-cost item and then it doesn't do anything that turn. And so what you've essentially done is you've played 1 jump ahead. And I don't think I would play 1 jump ahead in these decks.
Right.
But it's not 1 jump ahead because you can use it for 1 ink on the turn you play it. And it's kind of like in Magic, we have a card that a lot of cards that do that where you can play them. They come in untapped and able to be used. Mind Stone's the one that comes to mind immediately. It functions very similar to that, where you can play it and activate in the same turn. So it kind of makes its own cost reduced by 1 if you can use it on the turn you play it.
Right. And another thing we saw out of Josh that game that I thought was really impressive was we saw those 2 early Lilos, but Josh held off on questing with them for several turns until the coast was clear and got really paid off. A lot of the times, player could be aware that you're playing an aggressive deck and you see this 2 lore, you're like, I got to get this lore on the scoreboard. But with Lilo, when you're not playing against a steel deck, if you can just sit on that until the time is right, you can really get paid off, and Josh did in that game.
All right, well, as these players are shuffling up here for game number 2, I'm going to tell you about the Lost Boys. The Lost Boys is a project that I've been working on. I started it with Bomat about 2 months ago. We've been making all sorts of Lorcana content, and we got myself, Bomat, Harlan Fear, who used to play on the SCG Tour back in the day for Magic the Gathering, We also have our good friend Zach Weaver, who you constantly do battle with at our locals in the last
Right.
round, because y'all both always go undefeated.
Right.
But yeah, make sure to check out Lost Boys LOR on basically all platforms. We have a weekly podcast. We have gameplay videos where we play on Pixelborn and a bunch of other cool content. And we're off to the races. Let's get to the game. Turn one. We got Pascal from the Emerald Amethyst player, Jesse Unger. And Josh Courtney responds with Captain Hook. Doesn't look that great against Rapunzel. And this is like, the reason why you play things like Pascal, because they get away from these challenger characters.
And yeah, Captain Hook lines up a little better against this Flynn. As soon as the Flynn quests, Josh will be trading a discard to deal with it, but the Captain Hook will at least get to stick around and threaten the next character.
All right, Courtney is show strength gonna ink a Simba bodyguard, gonna play a lantern and a Stitch new dog. So threatening a potential turn 3 Stitch Rockstar. Pretty scary stuff if you're Jesse Unger. All right, we're gonna go back Unger's way. I have my spotter say, "Hey, you better start readying your stuff before you draw a card, or we're gonna get angry with you." And so you see Jesse, he started to draw, and then he's like, "Wait, got her ready first."
Yeah, let's keep the board state clear. Definitely interesting that we saw Josh inking that Simba. Really must prioritize this lantern as part of his game plan.
I think if it's in your opener, you kind of have to. If you don't leverage it, it's gonna rot in your hand and not get to count as ink. Whereas this turn, it got to come down and kind of count as an ink on the turn you played it. So I like to play from Courtney, especially without a lot of other inkables in hand. The
Right.
top of the curve can sometimes have those songs that are not inkable. Here is a Cheshire Cat. We're going to go questing for 3. Jesse Unger up to 4. Going to go back Courtney's way. We have a nice answer for a couple of things. A smash here from Courtney would be devastating because the whole board would collapse for Unger. Here's an aerial singer. Going to look at the top 4 and put them on the bottom. Oh, we found one. Be our guest.
I would guess that's going to hit the inkwell. There it goes.
That's where it's supposed to go.
Right.
There are some cards in this game that you shouldn't really be playing them until very late in the game, and Be Our Guest is one of them. If you spend your turn 2 playing Be Our Guest instead of playing any character or Man Accelerator or whatever, you're dead.
Yeah, and you can sing it, but even singing is always a cost, right?
I like singing it with Simba. Simba is like you always want it to be exerted.
Yeah,
so.
That's the best case scenario.
Yes, Unger! Yes, thank you so much. You did.
We'll make a Lorcana player out of him yet.
So there's no challenge on the Flynn Rider. To me, that means Courtney is about to play a grab your sword next turn. So if you're Unger, it's relatively telegraphed, and so you just probably want to play something that can survive it. Hans here seems like a pretty great play.
Especially seeing the Pascal hit the inkwell, thinking it's unlikely to survive at this point in the game if Josh has either tank or grab your sword.
All right, quest 4-5. Unger up to 9. About halfway there. Oh, maybe up to 10. Did I miscount? Nope. I'm the best. I got 10 fingers. I can count to 10. I got 10 toes. I can count to 20.
Also looked like a whole new world in Josh's hand. I wonder whether we'll see that played this game at all against the also aggressive Emerald Amethyst deck.
You know what I noticed, Matt?
What's that?
People really don't like to attack Flynn Rider.
Definitely. People get attached to their cards. This is great sequencing from Josh here. We see Stitch attack the Cheshire Cat first, and then grab your sword. Take care of it so that we don't lose our Stitch to the Cheshire Cat ability.
Yeah, the Cheshire Cat ability is specifically tied to the character banishing it, which is the big deal. So big heads up play there from Courtney. And now we're going to play another aerial, looking for another song. Do we find
That enchanted
Yes.
Tinkerbell's in there.
Found a grab your sword. So things looking pretty bad for Jesse Unger. He's at nine lore, but we're in some trouble. We're gonna go questing for 3 though. 9-3. Back Jesse Unger's way. Only 1 card left in hand. I think it's a Cusco though. Excuse me, 2 cards left in hand. I think it's Inkable plus Cusco.
Jesse better hope so. It's pretty demoralizing when you get your board wiped and then your opponent immediately shows you, I have another. Just you wait. And it's Jesse feeling the pressure here.
So we can use our Hans to trade with Ariel. I think that's pretty weak. You know, it already has 2 damage on it. It's dying to a bunch of different stuff. But 3 lore matters a bunch. So I'm just all in on hope I draw 3 Cuscos.
It's hard to even say what to prioritize if you were thinking of challenging with the Hans, because the Lilo has more lore and the Stitch is threatening shift, whereas there's a second Aerial in play. You maybe aren't scared of a whole new world. You know there's a grab your sword that your opponent can already play. Just kind of a rock and a hard place. 2 grab your swords.
Oh no.
Wow.
He tapped them both. I was like, are we just trading? No. Grab your sword
worked.
×2. And we're going to follow it up with another Lilo. And we're going to quest 4/4. Back Unger's way. Board is clear, though.
Turns
Not
out
feeling good.
Aggressive matchup. The player with the one-sided board wipes in their deck has an upper hand.
Yeah, we've seen this time and again. Emerald Amethyst falling to Amber Steel. These Stitch Blitz decks with grab your sword and a bunch of ticky-tacky damage. Very tough for these Emerald Amethysts to overcome, especially those really aggressive starts that feature Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. Here's another Aerial Singer. Going to look at the top 4. Doesn't find one this time, but hit on the previous 2, so you got to be pretty happy on 2 out of 3.
I don't know. You don't draw a card off your thing that won you the game already? What's the point? This deck doesn't seem very good to me.
All right, we're going to quest for 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, up to 15. Unger, no way out. Game, set, match. Going to Josh Courtney here in just a moment. Oh, I see a Befuddle. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, no, it was Olaf. Excuse me. All right, so if we kill both of the Lilos, we're still questing for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're at 20. So, I believe that's all she wrote.
And Josh Courtney is going to be one of our top 2 seeds going into the top 8.
Yeah, and that's exactly where we want to be. Stitch Blitz 401 going into the top 8. You get to be on the play because higher seed gets to choose play draw. That's an old remnant from our days playing Magic semi-professionally.
And Jesse making sure of the math.
All right, and he packs it in. Josh Courtney, 401, going to be your first seed. Jesse Unger still likely in the top 8 with a loss. It'll come down to tiebreakers at the end of the day, but his are likely going to be good because he just added a 401 to his resume. So congrats to both of them for making the elimination rounds, and big shout out to the Amber Steel Stitch Blitz deck that is currently 4-0-1.